Welcome to the Sisterhood of Limitless Living. I'm Dr. April Moreno, autoimmune wellness researcher and professional helping women around the world to live their best possible lives despite the autoimmune condition. Listen in as we speak on various topics about the autoimmune journey and interview amazing and inspiring women who are living and thriving despite their autoimmune condition. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sisterhood of Limitless Living podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We are speaking with Virginia Ladd of Arda, the American Autoimmune Related Disease Association leader. So thank you so much for being here today, Virginia. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you're doing today, and how you became involved with Arda.
Well, I'm doing well today. I'm the founder of Arda, as you said. I founded the organization actually 29 years ago. I am a lupus patient, which is an autoimmune disease. I have several other autoimmune diseases also. And I, at the time, 29 years ago, I was president of the Lupus Foundation of America. But I come from a very large family. I happen to have 13 siblings. And there were several other autoimmune diseases, not just lupus, in my family. I had brothers that had severe psoriasis. These diseases must be connected. And as I researched it, I found that, yes, they were autoimmune, but autoimmune diseases were not thought of as a disease category at the time. So everything was looked at separately, and I thought that was a real hindrance because the diseases shared a common pathway of disease. And I thought, we didn't know at the time, but because of my family, I thought there must be a genetic connection here, but that actually was not known. So I thought by bringing all the autoimmune diseases under the umbrella of the disease category autoimmune, we would be able to bring about much more awareness, really increase dollars, because it shows that the breadth and depth of the problem is much deeper than a single disease. Because looking at them singularly, most of the more than 130 some autoimmune diseases would be rather rare. But looking at them collectively, they can affect over 50 million Americans. So it's a huge problem. And there's also indication that they were growing in numbers. So I decided to found the organization around that. And our mission was to eradicate autoimmune diseases, mainly through bringing about collaboration among the other patient groups, among government agencies around the disease category of autoimmunity.
We'll just have to get more than one autoimmune condition in the first place, and then there's these commonalities across the disease. Tell us a little bit more about what you think is important for people to know. What does the world need to know about autoimmune disease?
Well, now that they actually are recognized as a disease category, most Americans now can understand what autoimmune disease is. When I founded the organization, 93% thought it was AIDS, which is not. AIDS is an acquired immune deficiency disease, where autoimmune disease is where you make antibodies to yourself. It's kind of like your defense system, which is supposed to protect you against bacteria and viruses and invaders, turns on yourself and attacks your own tissue. So that's the common disease pathway in autoimmune disease. So we now know that a patient can have more than one autoimmune disease. We definitely have shown that they are genetically connected, and many are treated with the same types of medications now, even though they may cross different specialties. So you might treat the endocrine autoimmune diseases like diabetes and thyroid by replacing what's missing. The rheumatic autoimmune diseases like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, you might treat with suppressing that over response of the immune system against the self. And you can do that with corticosteroids or way up to the new biologics, which has really changed the world of the treatment for autoimmune diseases. What I'd really like to have people understand that these diseases run in families. Now, why would that be important? That's important because there's a major problem in getting a diagnosis of these diseases. It can take up to 3 years and 5 doctors for the average person with one of the 5 more serious autoimmune diseases to actually get a diagnosis. So the problem with that is the symptoms can mimic many different things, but also the lack of awareness. Doctors' offices still do not ask on their intake form, do you have family members with autoimmune disease? They ask about cancer and heart. Well, in order to diagnose autoimmune diseases, somebody has to think of it. Hopefully that's the doctor, and what might trigger the doctor to think of it is that family history. So we really want to encourage people to understand autoimmune diseases within their families, and so that they can help out that family member who's having something going wrong health-wise and is not getting a diagnosis, and make sure that autoimmune diseases is considered because the doctor knows the family history. So we feel that that's very important.
We have one autoimmune condition, our relatives, even our cousins, our siblings, our parents, to see what other conditions were out there, and we can see these patterns.
And you can find a list of those diseases on our website at AARDA.org.
Wonderful list. It's very helpful. I refer to it very often. Can you share with us what those 5 major autoimmune diseases have been?
When we did the study around awareness, we were looking at lupus, MS, Crohn's, Sjogren's, rheumatoid arthritis. But we have actually every 5 years, we actually do that very same study to see what progress we're making. And now we're down to 23 instead of 93. Only 23% of the population think it's AIDS, but the majority of the population now can name an autoimmune disease. So we are making progress, but we do have a ways to go.
Even like research funding.
Well, that's very important because autoimmune diseases collectively are very underfunded. Now, there's many organizations that represent the single autoimmune diseases, and that's very important. People are very loyal to their single disease. That's very understandable. ARDA even has a program where we bring all these groups together on advocacy so that together our voice is louder, and we've made some real progress at increasing the funding at NIH, but it's still very small when you consider the numbers of people that have autoimmune disease, the cost of these diseases, because they usually last a lifetime, which when they tend to affect young women, 75% are women in most cases, and they're young women. So a young woman diagnosed with lupus or MS lasts a lifetime of having a serious chronic illness, which can really impact the healthcare system, but also the family. It'd be a real difficult for the family to handle the healthcare issues around that autoimmune disease.
So tell us a little bit more about ARDA, more specifically some of the activities. We talked a little bit about the advocacy work that's being done. Is there anything else that you can share with us on like the activities of ARDA lately been going on? Tell us more about ARDA.
Well, actually, I'm in Washington, D.C. because we just had a summit yesterday on autoimmune disease, and that will be probably within a week or two up on our website where people can watch it. We did webcast it, and so it'll be on YouTube, and it was very informative. So we do awareness projects like that. We support research. We work with an Autoimmunity Institute. This was a long-time goal. From the time I founded the organization, I actually could not believe that in our country, as big as the U.S., with all of our healthcare facilities, we did not have an institute, a health center that just devoted itself to autoimmune diseases collectively and have specialties from all the different specialties involved. That has been a problem because patients often have to see multiple specialists because they can have joint involvement at the same time, their gut's involved at the same time, their skin's involved. So they often, and still do, for the most part, have to coordinate their own care. That makes it very expensive because all these specialists order all their own tests, but it also is very difficult on the patient. So now I'm really pleased to tell you there is an Autoimmunity Institute in Pittsburgh, and that's a multi-specialty. They see all autoimmune diseases, and they really cater to the patient being able to see the different specialists while they're there at one office visit. And then those physicians can communicate with each other for the best interest of the patient. So we're really pleased, but we would like to see that model go out to medical centers all over the country. And I think if that happens, we will see a shortening of time of diagnosis and much better coordinated care And I think we'll see a real drop in the cost of these diseases. That's something we work on. That brings awareness. So being out there doing things like the podcast. We do have a walkout in California next week and a public forum where we will have some excellent physicians speaking. That's in the LA area, and they can contact our office to get more information on both the walk and the public forum. They're one day apart, so you can do both. That's a project we're involved in right now also. And in the advocacy area, one of the advocacy issues that's become a major problem for autoimmune patients, because now that we have these newer drugs, for 50 years we had to depend on old drugs, and now the biologics are there, but they're very expensive. But they've changed how autoimmune disease is treated. Instead of globally suppressing the immune system, which left you open to many side effects, now you can target that suppression through a biologic that is actually complex biological medicine that can work at the exact spot where you're producing a particular protein that's causing the inflammation. So that's excellent, but they're very expensive. So what's happening, insurance companies are resisting paying for these. And how they do that is they have policies that limit access. And one of them is called step therapy. So step therapy, and a lot of patients don't even know they're going through step therapy, which is kind of sad because they actually can appeal it. Step therapy is where your doctor, your physician who knows you, wants to put you on a medication that they think is best for you. But your insurance company says, no. You have to start out at this much less expensive drug. And if that doesn't work, then you can step up to the next. And if that doesn't work, you step up to the next. And if that doesn't work, you step up to the next. This is happening not just in autoimmune disease, but also in the treatment of cancer. So by the time you get to that high step where you now can get treated with what your doctor wanted you to have from the beginning, your disease has progressed. Your joint erosion has happened. And in the case of cancer, the cancer may have spread. So this is a very serious concern to people with very serious autoimmune and serious conditions like cancer. So we are advocating, we have a whole national program, Let My Doctor Decide. And we're wanting the public to get involved because we know, we did a survey of the public and found that 93% felt the doctor should be the one to make the final decision. But what's happening is in between that doctor's decision and the patient are 3 or 4 other entities that are making that decision. And even to the point now, we're hearing that it might just be up to your pharmacist. So the doctor may order something and then, no, that's the end of the doctor's decision, and the pharmacist now makes the decision. The pharmacist doesn't know you. And people with autoimmune disease, your immune system is very personal. It's you, it's made for you. So it's different from everybody else's immune system. So giving more precision medicine to make sure you're getting the treatment that works best for you takes a doctor that knows you, knows how you react to medications, knows what medications you cannot take, because maybe you have also kidney involvement. And maybe this drug that your insurance company wants to put you on as part of these steps may be injurious to your kidney. But your doctor knows that. They don't know you have. The insurance company doesn't know that. So this is a very big project for AARDA. We really believe that throughout the United States, the whole issue of access to these medications being determined by somebody other than physician is a threat to the patient's safety.
And I look forward to hearing more about the local event. I'm close to Los Angeles.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully maybe you can come. We have a public forum, and I will be there. I'm speaking there. I'm going to be speaking on how to be your own best advocate. And then walk is the next day at a local park. But if you look at AARDA.org, you can find all that information.
Right on the calendar. Okay.
It's a weekend. We have wonderful speakers. Speakers come from around the country. And then the walk is the next day.
So it looks like it says November 2nd and 3rd. Really close to the airport.
It's very close to the airport, which is good for me because I'm flying in. But we think that that's an area that's central to a lot of people that might be attending the walk and want to attend the public forum. And we have Rita Baron Faust, who wrote the book on autoimmune disease as a women's health issue. We'll be speaking. Dr. Bob Phillips is a psychologist who has written over 30 books on coping with chronic illness, including many of the autoimmune diseases. And we have Dr. Wallace speaking, who is a renowned physician rheumatologist from UCLA. We have a good lineup. And then there's myself. I will be speaking also. Well, I try to put a little humor on it. You have to have some humor when you live with a chronic illness. It helps.
And so what do you see as the future of autoimmune disease research advocacy?
The future, we have some directions to go with personalized medicine that will be even more precise to the patient. Some of the new research in cancer with the CAR therapy may be applicable to autoimmune diseases, and we have some real possible advances there, but we still don't know the basic mechanism that causes autoimmune disease, and that's where research into basic autoimmune research is very important, because most likely that underlying mechanism is going to be involved in multiple autoimmune disease, and that will help develop better therapies, better targeted therapies, personalized therapies.
To learn more about ARDA, we access arda.org, AARDA.org.
AARDA.org.
Okay, so then last question would be something like, what would you say to somebody who is going through the autoimmune journey? Maybe they don't have a diagnosis yet. What can they do? What type of advice would you provide to somebody who is just struggling with this issue?
Well, it's such a common occurrence for people with autoimmune disease. Like I said, it can take an average of 3 or 4 years to actually get a diagnosis. So some of the important things, one is sharing your family history. If there's other autoimmune patients in your family, that's important. Keeping track of what's going on. So when something new comes up, you can let the doctor know about that, because sometimes it takes a while for the autoimmune disease to identify itself, because there's so many symptoms that are similar to other conditions and similar to other autoimmune disease that it takes sometimes the physician to follow the patient. That's unfortunately one of the problems, though, is many times they'll see a doctor, the doctor will do some testing, no, you don't have anything, and they don't follow the patient. Because that's what has to happen. What typically happens is that patient who has now been to 3 or 4 doctors, there's a question that we know over 50-some% have it implied to them. They're either chronic complainers, too concerned with their health, and then, or it's in their head, and then that kind of puts them, they put it on the back bench too, thinking, well, maybe that's so. And they don't get to the diagnosis. And serious, very serious complications can occur, because if you have kidney involvement, your kidneys can be damaged in that time. So that it is critical to get to a correct diagnosis, but being followed by the same physician who has an interest in it, who doesn't dismiss your symptoms. One of the major symptoms that patients complain about is extreme fatigue. We tell them that don't describe it as tired, don't describe it as fatigue, because everyone is fatigued at times. 47% of the population is tired at any given time. So describe it what it really is for you. You can't even accomplish the things you want to accomplish. You're exhausted. You start up a flight of steps and can only get halfway up. That's not normal for somebody 20-some years old, but that can be their experience. You can't get through the day. So that's what you have to share with the doctor. This is not tiredness. This is, I cannot function. I am so exhausted. I particularly can't even do the things I love to do. And it's impacting that significantly in my life, because we found in surveying patients that patients felt, even when they had serious kidney involvement or something, they still put down fatigue as what interfered most with their life, interfered with their marriage. And it was the cause for losing a job, was the cause for filing for disability. So this is not just tiredness. When we looked into it, when Arda took a look at that, and we found there was very, very little research into what would be the mechanism behind that fatigue. So that is another research issue that's very high on our priorities, and we are looking for a significant grant to go much more in depth on what could be the mechanism, could possibly indications that there's some inflammation in the brain that could cause that. But it's just, there's so little research. So you need the research, you need the data, and that's what we're working. That's a big priority for ARDA. So I hope that answered your question.
Met so many women over the past couple of years who are going through that very journey where they're just like, it's all in their head. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's believing them. What can they do? Find a physician who does believe them and is willing to go through that course with them to find that right diagnosis.
And sometimes they can get that by going to some of the support groups and finding out what other, or going to a forum and finding out a doctor that speaks at the forum. They know, they understand it. Checking with, we can give referrals to doctors that we know understand autoimmune disease at our office. And then understand it can take a while, so you have to be patient. But it's important if new symptoms appear that's what you share with the doctor. And then one of the things I think that we as women do when we go into a doctor, we want to help that doctor. We're frustrated. We want to help them get to it. So we may provide them with a list of 25 symptoms. That tends to make you look like you're too concerned with your health, and then tends to help them dismiss you. So focus on the most serious symptoms you're experiencing, the fatigue, joint pain, if that's what's happening. Be very concise. And then when you experience a new symptom, make sure let's say you start having hair loss, which is common in autoimmune disease. Bring that to the attention of the doctor. Well, now I'm starting to have hair loss. And then try to do the things that you actually can do to help yourself. Even though you're not diagnosed, you might be able to actually do better with what's going on by learning how to pace your activity, because we do know that high activity and high stress can trigger the disease. Of course, it's stressful, feeling bad, and not having a diagnosis. See if you can kind of accept it. May take a while. You're going to improve your diet, eat the things that a healthy diet, get enough sleep, pace yourself so that you're not flat on the couch 3 days and then hyper busy the next 3 days catching up with all that you couldn't do because that keeps the disease active. It actually keeps the inflammation active. That's why sometimes spouses have trouble with that, because they feel like they're living with a roller coaster. You're doing better, and then you're hyperactive, and then you're back on the couch, and they almost can see it coming because they can see how busy you've been. So learning to do some of those things and learning to look at it as a challenge. This is a challenge life has given you. How are you going to meet that challenge? Sometimes you meet the challenge by slipping under the hurdle without anybody knowing it, rather than getting over the hurdle. And sometimes you can do that very creatively. I always make one big recommendation to people with fatigue. Get a crock pot or an Instapot where you can prepare that meal in the morning, and then you could be taking a nap at the time it's time to prepare dinner. So there's all kinds of little tips like that. So people have told me I should write a book on that, but I haven't ever had time. Maybe now that I have more time, I'll do that. Well, we'll be covering some of that at the public forum, because I think that's how you can become your own best advocate, is knowing where you're at and how you can meet these challenges and how you can have a near normal life. Even though you have a serious disease, you still have a life, because you are you first. You have the disease second.
That's beautiful. So much important advice from Virginia Ladd today. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sisterhood of Limitless Living podcast. If you like what you heard, come and follow us and subscribe on iTunes or give us a review. Also, you can join us on the Facebook group, The Sisterhood of Limitless Living, or come visit me on my website, aprilmorenophd.com. Take care.